A 58-year-old retired teacher from Ohio landed in London Heathrow last March. She had her passport ready. Her bags were packed perfectly. She had traveled internationally twice before with zero issues. And within 9 minutes of reaching the immigration desk, she was escorted to a back room, questioned for 4 hours, and put on the next flight home. Her entire 2-week vacation gone. Not because she was carrying something illegal, not because her documents were expired, because she answered one routine question the wrong way. She over-explained, contradicted herself, and triggered every red flag an immigration officer is trained to spot. And the worst part? She had nothing to hide. She just didn't know the rules of the conversation she was walking into. That is exactly what this video is going to fix. Because there are 7 specific questions that customs and immigration officers ask at border checkpoints around the world. And how you answer them in 2026 determines whether you walk through to baggage claim or get pulled into a windowless room for secondary screening. So pay close attention, because some of these are going to surprise you. If you haven't traveled internationally since before 2024, the experience waiting for you at the immigration desk has changed more than you probably realize. Countries across the board have invested heavily in automated screening technology. Officers now have instant access to your travel history, your visa applications, your electronic travel authorizations, and in many cases, the answers you already gave on digital forms before you even boarded the plane. That means the questions they ask you are no longer just casual conversation. They are verification checks. The officer already has a version of your story. They are asking you to confirm it or contradict it. According to data published by US Customs and Border Protection, secondary inspections increased by over 14% between 2023 and 2025. The UK Home Office reported similar trends at Heathrow and Gatwick. Australia tightened its screening protocols in early 2025. And Canada's CBSA rolled out new AI-assisted risk assessment tools that flag inconsistencies in real time. The bottom line is this: the margin for error at the immigration desk has gotten razor thin. A vague answer, a nervous contradiction, or even an overly rehearsed response can put you on the wrong side of that desk faster than ever before. So here are the 7 questions you need to be ready for. Question number 1. What is the purpose of your visit? This is the very first thing almost every immigration officer on the planet will ask you, and it is stunning how many travelers fumble it by saying too much. Here is what the officer wants to hear. A short, clear, direct answer. Tourism. Visiting family. Business meetings. That is it. 2 to 5 words. What they do not want is a story. They do not want to hear about how your cousin invited you 6 months ago, and you were not sure if you could get time off work, but then your boss approved it, and you found a great deal on flights, so here you are. Every extra sentence you add is another sentence the officer has to evaluate for consistency. And the more you say, the more likely something will not line up with what is already in their system. A man named Gerald, 64 years old, flew into Toronto last October from Dallas. When the officer asked him the purpose of his visit, Gerald launched into a 5-minute explanation about reconnecting with an old college roommate, possibly looking at real estate, and maybe doing some fishing. That answer hit 3 different categories: social visit, potential immigration intent, and tourism, all in one breath. He was flagged immediately. Spent 3 hours in secondary. The fix is simple. Pick one truthful purpose. State it clearly. Stop talking. If the officer wants more detail, they will ask. Your job is to answer the question, not to tell your life story. Question number 2. How long are you staying? Your answer to this question gets checked against something you probably forgot you already submitted. Your arrival card, your visa application, or your electronic travel authorization. If you told the ESTA system you were staying 10 days, and you tell the officer 3 weeks, that mismatch triggers an immediate follow-up. And now you are explaining a discrepancy instead of walking to your gate. The key here is consistency. Before you travel, review every document you submitted. Know your dates. If your plans changed after you filed your paperwork, that is fine, but be ready to explain the change calmly and specifically. Say something like, I originally planned 10 days but extended to 14, Because we added a stop in Chicago. That is clear. That is logical. That does not raise alarms. What raises alarms is uncertainty. Saying something like, "Oh, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month. We will see how it goes." That tells the officer you either do not have a plan or you are hiding one. Neither is good. Also, be aware of your visa limits. If you are entering the US on a B1, B2 visa, you are generally allowed up to 180 days. But that does not mean the officer will grant you all 180. They can stamp you for less. Knowing your allowed duration and stating a reasonable stay within it makes you look prepared and credible. Question number 3. Where are you staying? Officers are not making small talk when they ask this. They are building a mental profile of whether your story holds together. If you say you are visiting for tourism but cannot name a single hotel, that is a problem. If you say you are staying with family but do not know their address, that is a problem. If you booked an Airbnb but cannot remember the neighborhood, that is a problem. The standard of proof here is not perfection. You do not need to recite a street address from memory. But you need to have something concrete, a hotel name, a neighborhood, a printed confirmation, something on your phone you can show if asked. The reason this matters so much in 2026 is that officers increasingly cross-reference your stated accommodation with your stated purpose and length of stay. A 2-week vacation at a hotel makes sense. A 2-week vacation with no accommodation booked raises questions. Are you planning to work? Are you planning to overstay? Are you being sponsored by someone you did not disclose? Those are the threads the officer starts pulling. The simplest way to handle this question is preparation. Before your trip, screenshot your hotel confirmation, your Airbnb booking, or your host's name and address. Keep it accessible on your phone. When the officer asks, you give them a clear answer and offer to show proof. That level of preparedness communicates one thing. You are a legitimate traveler with nothing to hide. Question number 4. How much money are you carrying? Most travelers panic at this question because they think it is a trick. But the real trap is not knowing the legal threshold that triggers a mandatory declaration. In the United States, that threshold is $10,000. If you are carrying $10,000 or more in cash, or monetary instruments, and that includes traveler's checks, money orders, and certain prepaid cards, you are legally required to declare it. Failing to declare is a federal offense, not a fine, not a warning. A federal offense that can result in seizure of the entire amount and potential criminal charges. Canada has the same $10,000 threshold. The European Union sets it at 10,000 euros. Australia is 10,000 Australian dollars. These limits apply per person, not per family. So if a couple is traveling together and carrying $12,000 total, they need to declare it, even though individually they might each be under the limit, because the total household amount they are transporting exceeds the threshold. Now, carrying large amounts of cash is not illegal. The declaration is what matters. Officers ask this question specifically to see if you will be honest. If you say you are carrying $2,000 and they search your bag and find $8,000, you now have a credibility problem that goes far beyond the money. Answer this question truthfully and specifically. If you are under the threshold, say so confidently. If you are at or above it, declare it and have your paperwork ready. Question number 5. Do you have anything to declare? This single question has cost travelers more money in fines and seized goods than almost any other moment in the border crossing process. And the reason is not that people are smuggling contraband, it is that they genuinely do not know what counts as declarable. Food is the biggest offender. Fresh fruits, vegetables, meats, dairy products, and even certain packaged snacks are restricted or prohibited entry into dozens of countries. The United States alone levies fines starting at $300 for a first offense of failing to declare agricultural products. Australia is even stricter. Fines there can reach over 60,000 Australian dollars for serious biosecurity violations, and they use detector dogs at nearly every international arrival hall. In 2025, U.S. Customs and Border Protection reported seizing over 1.7 million prohibited agricultural items at ports of entry. 1.7 million. That tells you how common this mistake is. Beyond food, you may need to declare large purchases made abroad, gifts over a certain value, commercial goods, medications that contain controlled substances, and items from sanctioned countries. The safest approach is this. When in doubt, declare it. You will never be penalized for declaring something that turns out to be fine. But you can absolutely be fined, or worse, for failing to declare something that was restricted. Grab a customs declaration card on the plane. Fill it out honestly. If you are unsure about a specific item, ask the officer. They would rather answer your question than catch you trying to sneak something through. Question number 6. What do you do for a living? Your occupation tells an immigration officer far more than you think. It signals whether your trip makes sense, whether you can fund it, and whether you have a reason to go back home. That last part is critical. One of the primary concerns at any immigration checkpoint is whether the traveler intends to overstay their visa. Your job, your career, your business, your professional ties is one of the strongest indicators that you have a life to return to. If you say you are a retired school principal visiting your grandchildren for 2 weeks, that story checks every box. Stable background, clear purpose, family ties in both countries, defined timeline. If you say you are between jobs and just traveling for a while, that raises questions. Not because unemployment is a crime, but because it removes one of the officer's key data points for assessing your intent to leave. Be honest, but frame your answer in a way that reinforces stability. If you are retired, say retired and mention what you retired from. If you are self-employed, name your business. If you are a student, name your school and mention when your next semester starts. If you are between positions, mention that you are actively interviewing or that you have a start date coming up. The goal is not to fabricate anything. It is to present the truth in a way that answers the officer's unspoken question. Does this person have a reason to go home? Question number 7. Have you visited any other countries before arriving here? In 2026, your travel history is no longer just a conversation topic. It is a data point that officers are actively cross-referencing in real time. Many countries now share entry and exit records through international databases. The US has information sharing agreements with dozens of nations. The European Union's new entry-exit system, which began a phased rollout in recent years, tracks non-EU nationals across all Schengen borders. So when an officer asks where you have been, they may already know the answer. They are testing whether you will tell the truth. This question also serves a security and health screening function. Travel to certain regions may trigger additional questioning or screening. If your passport shows recent stamps from a country on a watch list, the officer wants to hear your explanation before they decide how to proceed. The worst thing you can do is omit a country you visited. If the officer already sees it in the system and you did not mention it, your credibility drops instantly. Be straightforward. List the countries you have visited recently in simple terms. I was in Germany for a week, then spent 3 days in France before flying here. Clear, factual, verifiable. That is all they need. Now, knowing the right answers means nothing if your delivery triggers the officer's suspicion. And there are 3 behaviors that raise red flags faster than a wrong answer ever could. The first is overtalking. When people are nervous, they fill silence with words. They explain things that were not asked. They add qualifications and backstories. Every unnecessary word gives the officer more material to probe. Answer the question. Then stop. The second is inconsistency. If you told the airline one thing, wrote something different on your arrival card, and say a third version to the officer, you are going to have a very long day. Before you land, review everything you submitted and make sure your verbal answers match. The third is hostile or defensive body language. Officers are trained to read non-verbal cues, crossing your arms, avoiding eye contact, sighing loudly, or snapping back with irritation. All of these suggest you have something to hide, even if you don't. Stay calm. Be polite. Treat the interaction like a professional conversation, because that is exactly what it is. One more thing you should know. If you do get pulled into secondary inspection, it is not an arrest. It is not a conviction. and it does not automatically go on a permanent record. Secondary inspection is simply an extended screening process where officers take more time to verify your information. It can happen to anyone for any reason, including random selection. What matters is how you handle it. Stay calm. Answer questions the same way you answered them at the primary desk, clearly, briefly, and consistently. Do not volunteer information that was not requested. Do not argue. Do not demand to speak to a supervisor unless you believe your rights are being violated. In most cases, secondary inspection lasts between 30 minutes and 2 hours. The vast majority of travelers who go through it are released and allowed to continue their journey. It feels intimidating, but cooperating calmly is the fastest way through it. Here is the reality that should make you feel better about all of this. Immigration officers are not trying to catch you in a lie for sport. They are doing a job that requires them to make quick decisions about thousands of people every single day. Your goal and their goal are actually aligned. They want to process you quickly and move on to the next person. You want to get through quickly and start your trip. When you give short, clear, consistent, honest answers, you make their job easy. And when you make their job easy, they make your experience easy. That is the entire system in a nutshell. So before your next international trip, review these 7 questions. Practice your answers out loud. Make sure they match your documents. Screenshot your hotel booking. Know your cash amount. Check what needs to be declared. If this helped you feel more prepared for your next border crossing, subscribe to this channel because we cover exactly this kind of practical travel information every single week. The stuff that actually keeps you out of trouble at 30,000 feet and on the ground. Travel smart, answer well, and you will be just fine.